So this deck, it kind of, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but I don't think too many people were prepared for this coming into this tournament.
I would honestly say that this did come out of nowhere because your traditional builds of Simic Flash were something that people had not considered to be particularly good. People knew that they existed, but we didn't view them as a community as being particularly powerful or strong deck. Everything had to go right. They flipped the narrative on this deck in a very big way. It is your breakout tournament of the weekend, and it has been very, very good for these three players.
It has indeed, all three in the top 8. Let's get things going here. We're going to start things off with a growth spiral from Javier Dominguez, finding a Paradise Druid off the top of the library. So those two cards you mentioned, the two inclusions in the ramp spells, Paradise Druid and growth spiral, which kind of seem to make all the difference here for this archetype.
Both of those cards are huge additions to the deck. And what is so interesting about this Flash deck, especially in this matchup, is you name a deck Flash, and part of the reason is because this deck plays almost entirely at instant speed, but it does also have some ramp elements. And what's going to happen in this matchup is these players are actually going to play on their main phase more than you would expect for a Flash type deck, where ideally they're playing on their opponent's turn the entire time. That can't happen here given a lot of the dynamics that are at play.
So Paradise Druid on the stack. Brad Nelson just deciding if he wants to risk it for the biscuit and fire off a growth spiral in response to it. But like we know, this deck is packing a bunch of counter spells, especially Mystical Dispute. That's the worst thing you want to get booped by, and he might just get countered here if Javier wants to prevent him from drawing any cards.
Yeah, what's interesting here is Javier has the opportunity to Mystical Dispute this if he'd like to. Now,
he could also Growth Spiral and then Mystical if he gets lucky.
If he does get a little bit lucky. Now, I don't know how necessary that typical line of play is here, but Javier is going to kind of work through the paces of the upsides and downsides of countering this spell or casting Growth Spiral in response. It looks like he's actually going to let the Spiral resolve. So Brad will get a Temple onto the battlefield. He'll scry 1. We'll see where this top card is going to go here, and Brad actually has some thinking to do about this top card. So these two players, I will say this, they didn't test the mirror much because they didn't expect a lot of this to be here. And if they did test against a Simic Flash deck in the mirror, it wasn't their build. It was probably a stock build with Brineborn Cutthroat. So as they have run into each other, because these two players did play earlier in the tournament, Brad was able to win, but Brad even admitted, I haven't played a lot of the matchup because why would we?
Yeah. Well, I guess they weren't expecting to all three be in the top 8.
Exactly. They'll test against everything else, and as far as I'm concerned, they broke it for this tournament.
Yeah.
They're 3 for 3 into day number 3 of competition, and statistically, their deck is likely to win the tournament.
Yep.
But they didn't play against each other.
No, they did not. So it's going to be interesting to see them cross paths further on down the line, but here's a Temple of Mystery off of the Growth Spiral. That's a Forest on top. Is it going to stay there for Javier Dominguez, or will he send it to the back?
There is some appeal to leaving this card on top because you want to be able to, 1, dump a ton of mana into Hydroid Crisis, but 2, make sure you have enough mana to do Nissa, Who Shakes the World, and counter with Mystical Dispute, which he does have access to right now.
Yeah.
But I think he can do better as just a random draw step as opposed to a forest. So he's going to put that on the bottom. We're going to head back Brad's way. Now, again, interesting, a Flash deck tapped out on its own main phase, something you oftentimes don't see. So Brad can take advantage of this by deploying Nightpack Ambusher right now if he wants to, but he's going to hold steady.
All right. Draw step there is a forest, irrespective of the one that was sent to the bottom of the library, and it looks like we're going to go for, is it going to be the big jellyfish? Nope, it's going to be Nissa Who Shakes the World, leaving mana up for a Mystical Dispute.
Yeah, and this could be game over, and here's why. Brad's going to try to counter this. Javier has the Mystical Dispute to fight back.
And he doesn't have a way to Mystical Dispute the dispute.
That is correct, and I know that you know this, but for our viewers who don't, when Nissa is on the battlefield in this mirror for a turn or 2, it wins the game all by itself.
Yeah, things tend to get a little bit cuckoo when Nissa Who Shakes the World is on the battlefield. Now swinging in for 5, do the Paradise Druid and the Island. There's the Mystical Dispute that Brad would have needed to prevent Nissa from resolving. Nightpack Ambusher will be the play. No counter spells for Javier Dominguez. Another forest off the top of the library, and a big jellyfish cometh.
And while Brad does have a copy of Mystical Dispute to counter this spell, you can see already that Javier is going to dump a ton of mana into Hydroid Crisis right now. He's also going to untap a forest.
Yep.
He's got 12 mana floating at the moment. We can make it 14, dump it all into the Crisis, and even if this does get disputed, the cards in life are still going to come. And that's really bad news here for Nelson as he sacrifices a Fabled Passage.
Nothing like refilling your hand, huh?
It's a very good feeling, trust me.
Easy peasy. So there we go, Mystical Dispute. No big jellyfish for you, thank you very much. But what do we find? Quench, Frilled Mystic, Nightpack Ambusher, Ether Gust, and a Castle Ventress. Yeah, that's not a whiff.
Yeah, that is the farthest thing from a whiff. We're looking at 2, 3. We can call it 4 counter spells. Ether Gust isn't technically a counter spell, but it can counter things and make life difficult. And a copy of Night Pack Ambusher as well. This is going to fall down to 3, but 3 is not 0. So the Planeswalker is still going to be on the battlefield, and this will allow Javier to continue to play multiple spells per turn.
Big Hydroid Krasis of his own, just a 4/4, gaining 2 life, 2 cards. Brazen Borrow off the top for Javier Dominguez. Woo-wee. Man, Nissa is just so bonkers.
It certainly can be on an open battlefield where it's not being pressured. It is an incredibly powerful card. So Nissa's going to
there you go.
Allow Brad to concede the game. More things could have happened, but Brad said, I'm out of here. So Javier Dominguez with the W.
Man, Nissa just runs away with games. It's absolutely insane. Look at the smiles on their faces. They know, they're just like, this deck is just crazy. It's doing everything we wanted it to do, even against each other. So, yeah, it's nuts.
It is absolutely nuts. And Javier and Brad, again, they tested together for this tournament alongside Seth Manfield. They were thinking about playing Jeskai Fires. They made the switch